Welcome back to another episode of Off Hours with Bourbon Lens. This is Jake, along with Jake Ireland, CEO and founder of Off Hours, as well as our new guest today. He drives left turns for a living, but this weekend, actually, he's going to be driving all types of turns because they're doing a road course. Conor Daly, thanks for joining this episode with Jake and Jake.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for having me, Jakes.
Yeah, it makes it easy to say the names, but it can be confusing for the guest.
No, I respect that. I love it. Actually, I think you guys got to sell merch for sure.
It's the next step.
Next step. Yeah, marketing. Chloe, if you're listening to this, just jot that down for our next one-on-one.
Yeah,
perfect.
Awesome. Well, I did joke and say, you do left turns for a living, but I do have just one question before we get into like everything about the moments in between, which this podcast is about, is what's the day-to-day life like for a racer, right? Like, I think a lot of times people hear the word like racer and athlete, and they don't really truly understand what goes into that. So what's kind of the day-to-day grind for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a great question. It's more of a full-time job than I think anyone really assumes or anyone knows. There's a lot. I mean, as you said, athlete, like we are at the gym every day, have a trainer. I train twice a day, once in the morning, ride my bike in the evening, but also during the day. I mean, this is a business as well. We have many corporate partners that are, part of this. BitNile.com is our primary sponsor. We're working on stuff constantly for them. What are we doing per weekend? What are we doing per day? What sponsor needs this during the day? We're on the phone with our engineers. We have a race this weekend, right? So I was looking at a ton of different data analytics yesterday about, what this race looks like, different cars, data, where are they applying the throttle? Where are they applying the brake? How are we going to be the best we possibly can be every session? What does the strategy look like in the race? What are those different strategic options for that? We have to know a lot. And we have to be a lot. We have to be a business entity. We have to be a marketing agency. We have to be an athlete. So there's a ton of stuff that goes on. But it's not necessarily a normal day job, right? Like there will be hours where I don't really have anything to do. I could be doing something, but it might give me time to do something else or look into something else. But for the most part, I mean, honestly, we look forward to the weekends that are off weekends. Just like anyone who's got a 9 to 5. I mean, there's a lot that goes on. But that's why we love it. When we do get to show up to these race weekends, those are the most fun parts. But sadly, there are only, 17 IndyCar weekends a year. And I've got, I think, 4 to 5 NASCAR weekends a year. So many, many more weekends in the year. And we only get to spend about 20 of them at the racetrack, which is the dream place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get to, during the off season like that, are you able to kind of take a step back and travel and do your own thing? Or is it, still having to be on a little bit from a marketing standpoint, from your sponsors, from, just kind of obviously staying in shape and everything, and practicing and all that? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, there really isn't a lot of practice. Sadly, that's been limited too. So we do get to shut down for a little bit. Like it is nice to switch off. Because honestly, the season it's brutal. It's a grind, physically, mentally. You put everything on the line every weekend, and it's a lot. And there's a ton of travel. I flew 125 times last year. So that's a lot of flights. It's a lot of time spent in the air. And so I do. I haven't been a big vacation guy yet. Like this is the first time in my career where I've ever had like a 2-year deal. So like over the winter, I didn't have to worry about finding a ride for next year, finding a job for next year. Like I had it already. So this off season coming up, will look a little bit different. It'll be a contract year. So trying to figure out where we go next year, what we do next year, what sponsorship partners will be involved, because without sponsors, we don't go racing. So that's the most important thing. But yeah, there will be some time for sure to calm down a little bit. I went to Ireland with my girlfriend to see my family in December over the last off season. So that was great. But as soon as you get about a month into the off season, you are dying to get back to the racetrack and get going again.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. I have to ask the question that everyone's probably dying to know, and you probably know where I'm going. What happens when you have to go to the bathroom in these long ass races?
Honestly, man, it's funny how often people ask that. I mean, it's so hot in these race cars. It doesn't matter if it's an IndyCar or a NASCAR. You sweat everything out. So it doesn't matter how much you've drank. It's literally hotter than a sauna in there, and you're doing a physical activity. So, during the IndyCar race, the first IndyCar race of the season in St. Pete just a couple weeks ago, that's a 5,500 calorie day. You're burning everything out of your body. You're sweating so much that you don't have to pee for hours afterwards. You go for a 12-hour period, never having to pee. So it's a lot, and it extracts a lot out of you.
That's crazy.
What's the pregame meal look like?
No, good question.
It just depends on when the race is, honestly, because sometimes, we race like the Indy 500 every year. It's 12:23 in the afternoon, right? So that's, it's been the green flag time for 100 years, it seems like, and that's kind of what we do. But that's kind of too early to eat lunch. Like you definitely don't want to eat right before you get in, because you want to have the stomach settled. You want to have the body in the right place. But I also have type 1 diabetes, so I got to make sure I do eat something at some point. So it's usually like a light breakfast in the morning, whether that's, I like to eat Lucky Charms. Like that's a Lucky cereal in the morning, early morning. And then usually we have like a pasta dish. Like for me, it's carbs, load up on a little bit of energy, probably 2 hours or an hour and a half before the race. And that's usually what we have pretty consistently.
Well, and I want to go to talking about like my athletic career and what we ate before, but you mentioned something about being type 1 diabetic. Like how is that possible? Because I know like you're making sure your insulin levels are right. Like how does that impact you during the race? Because that's something a lot of people don't think about. Like that's a challenge, because having your insulin regulated is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard, but I've been doing it since I was 14. I got diagnosed when I was 14 and I've been racing since I was 10 years old. So I kind of didn't really see life any differently, other than there was a lot more added to it. There was a few more required steps to living, and which is fine because I liked living and I liked racing. So I figured I had to do those things. But yeah, honestly, it's just about preparation. Like, thankfully, every person is certainly different. Like you see how certain personalities would deal with diabetes a little bit differently. And thankfully, I'm a pretty strict person when it comes to like what I actually have to do. Like it's also, and a lot of people struggle with this equation, but like what you put in your body requires a medication to also be put into it. Right. So like, it's not like it's just going to magically do something different. Like what you put in causes something to happen with your blood sugar, right? So you just have to know that that's always going to happen no matter what, every day that you're alive. So, for me, eating the same thing, it does the same thing to my blood sugar no matter what, right? So I'm prepared before the race. I always have a Gatorade at the car right before I get in if I need it, or water if I don't need it. But all that stuff is about preparation. I wear a CGM, a constant glucose monitoring system in the car, so we see it all the time. But honestly, adrenaline cures all bodily problems as well. If you break your leg in the middle of a race, you'll get out and walk on that sucker until you realize what's happened, right? So it's something that I think we produce such a high level of adrenaline that also helps keep the body, focused on not dying rather than fixing diabetes.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I didn't even think about it that way. Like your body's going to go into that fight or flight mode, right? And do what it needs to do during that time. But it's so cool that technology's come that far that you can have those systems and they're remote monitored, and your team can, make sure, hey, Conor, you're good. Let's keep on rolling and punch it.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
And I wouldn't let it stop me anyway. I would never even put myself in a position to where it could even affect it, right? Because racing is the most important thing. And realistically, if you miss a little bit and you're on the higher side, that doesn't really matter. Like, that's fine. It's only really if it goes lower that's the issue. And I even in the car have a drink bottle that has like a Gatorade and water mix. So
cool.
It in all my years of racing, it's never once caused an issue. So I feel like I've got it down. But it is annoying, but I've got it down, I think.
No, that's great. And going back to your pregame meal, it's really interesting. So when I was playing football at Kentucky, we had the same meal no matter what. If we had a 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock game, or if we had a game at noon, it was eggs, bacon, a biscuit, and then filet mignon and spaghetti and green beans. Like,
oh man,
we had
I like that. That sounds great.
that was the smorgasbord that you got to choose from, and then you had your choice of Gatorade, since we were Gatorade school. And so it was just kind of weird. Like the first time I traveled, and I'm like, do we eat all of this? Do we not eat all of this? Like, I've never really had a smorgasbord before a game, because like in high school, we would stop at like the local Steak and Shake, grab a burger, go chill out, and then, play the game at 7:00. That's just what we did. It was a terrible idea looking back at it, but
Well, I mean, one of my favorite things is if there's a race at like noon, right? It's really hard to I don't actually, I like breakfast, but I don't actually like to eat a lot before the race. I don't, because I love eating after the race, because you felt like you've burned off everything. It doesn't matter what you're going to eat. It could be 10 pizzas. It could be whatever you want it to be, because you've burned everything out of your system. So that's my favorite thing. Like the 3:00 starts are a little bit tougher, because you're like, well, it's, you have your breakfast, you definitely have your lunch. And then by the time the race is over, it's like 5:36. You're still hungry, but you still feel better having like 2 dinners rather than 1 dinner.
So what's your after race like go to then?
I have no idea, honestly. It just depends on where we are. Like St. Petersburg, Florida, our first race. We race right downtown St. Pete. So you got all these great restaurants right afterwards. I went to dinner with our friend Steven. Jake, we had a nice little seafood display. There was a bunch of different sushis and fishes and things that we could eat that were delicious. And it's just everything. I will have everything. Give me the shrimp cocktails, the fish, the fries, extra side of fries for sure for some carbs. But like at Texas, our next race, the next IndyCar race in Dallas, that's at a super speedway. So there's not really right outside, there's an In-N-Out burger. I might do that. I don't know. There's that. So it just depends on where we are, honestly.
I do love In-N-Out burger, and it's coming to Nashville. So I've
heard about that.
Yeah. It's made its way over here to the East Coast. Not too bad.
I love that.
I can only imagine the lines that they're going to have.
Oh.
Yeah. That's going to be rough.
It is.
Yeah. Sign me up for that business model.
No kidding. It'd almost be like if Skyline opened in California, right, Jake?
Exactly. I'd be first in line.
I don't think Conor was as excited as me and you are about Skyline.
I used to have I remember what Skyline tastes like. There was one not far from where I grew up.
Oh yeah.
So
we were talking last week, Conor, about what our meal would be, our last meal and everything. And that was my last meal, was 3-way with a couple cheese conies.
Wow, I respect that.
Off hours.
Yeah,
I respect that. Yeah, a bunch of off hours, like a quart.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's going to be the moments in between have just expanded it to an infinite amount at that point.
Exactly.
Oh man. So, we talked a little bit about racing and all of that, but one of the new things that we're doing this year is we have Jake on with us. So how did you get to know Jake, and how did you all, connect?
I mean, really, it was just through friends of friends, right? One of my best friends here in town is Stephen Bischoff. He's known Jake for a long time. And we just kind of run in the same circles of folks. Obviously, you're not here as much now, Jake, but that's all right. We like California a lot. I actually spend a lot of time in LA now. My girlfriend lives in LA, so we'll all have to get together at some point. But yeah, it's just kind of through friends of friends. And I mean, honestly, most of this business is a relationship business anyway in racing. And you meet someone who introduces you to someone else, cool people hang with good people. So it's kind of cool to have that.
No, it's funny you say that. One of our friends here locally will say, good people need to have good people that marry good people need to have good kids. That's what he always tells us. So he's like,
I hope so, right?
Yeah. He's like, all good people should produce children, because this the world needs more good children.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh man, no, that's awesome. So I did a little research, right? One of the other really fascinating things about you is you were on The Amazing Race.
Oh yes, yeah. We did some reality television for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is that? To the normal viewer, it looks cool, but is it staged? Is it as hard as it looks? What's that? Can you give a little glimpse behind the scene, or do you have an NDA?
No. I can say whatever I want. I think I haven't been in touch with those folks since we left, but it was honestly really hard. It is tough. They put you through a lot because they want you to be mentally drained. They want you to be physically drained. They want you to say dumb stuff on camera, right? Because that's what creates entertaining content. So, but I actually, looking back on it is way more fun than actually doing it, because looking back on some of the stuff that we did, you do it in a competitive in a competitive like form. So like you can't actually enjoy everything that you're doing while you're doing it. And like we got to do some crazy stuff. Like we got to be at a rhino preserve in the middle of Zimbabwe looking at lions and monkeys and elephants, but like we had a challenge to do. So we had to do it. And like we didn't really focus much on like what was going on around us. You know what I mean? And like we went to countries that I will never go to again. You know what I mean? And it was really cool to look back and be like, wow, we got to just hang out with elephants at the finish line of the Zimbabwe race or the Zimbabwe leg. Oh, and, man. You know, we went to Hong Kong. Like, I will never go to Hong Kong again, probably. But, like, it was cool to see. Like, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of crazy stuff there. So it was something that, you know, the activities that we did, you know, I built a trebuchet in the middle of France, you know, on some weird castle place, right? I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. Yeah. But it was fun. And it was something that was I don't know if I would do it again. I know Alex Rossi, my partner, would definitely not do it again. Because it's, you know, it is a real challenge for a full month being away. But yeah, it's cool to look back on for sure. We got to do a lot of wild stuff.
So like when you're doing those like challenges, like is it you finish and then like you get on a plane and go to the next place, or like how quick is it in between?
No, so basically you the way they set it up is like for example, we started in New York City. They say go, and like you immediately go to the airport because you're flying to Iceland. Like we were going to Iceland. And so you get to the airport and you get your plane ticket, really old school way. Like you have to go to a travel agent and get this like real ticket and like buy it with them like cash. Well, they actually pay with credit cards, the customs, or not the customs, the producers. But yeah, we just get a plane ticket and then you sit in the airport for like 8 hours and then you don't do anything. So you're just sitting there and you have no phones, you have nothing to do. You can't really do anything. You maybe go to like one of those technology stores, like where they sell laptops in the airport, and you look up where you're going. Like we're going to go to Iceland. Here's where we're landing. What do the roads look like? What do things look like? Like we did a little bit of research, but realistically you don't do anything. And then as soon as you land, technically you're still on camera at that point too. Like they can film you at the airport, but realistically you and the camera sound guy are just hanging out. And you know, we have a certain amount of money we can spend too. So we can't really buy a bunch of food. Like we shop on the dollar menus because we don't know if we're going to have to buy a bunch of taxi rides when we get to Iceland. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of unknown. And then as soon as we get there, boom, you're sprinting through the airport. Like everyone's running outside. You kind of know where to go. There's cars that we had to get into to drive a certain place, but yeah, there's no satellite. You got to use a map and you got to look at road signs. And so it is pretty legit. And once you go through that whole leg and you get to the finish line in Iceland, then you're off camera. And so we stayed there for, I think, 16 hours. Like the pit stops are usually 12 to 48 hours because they get the crews basically to the next location while you maybe have a sleep and then you leave it the next morning. So once you then leave again, then you're on camera again. But usually like we stayed a night, and at the longest points, we stayed 2 nights in places before we even continued on to the next stage of the race.
No, that's pretty wild. I love traveling. And so I can imagine, like you said, not being able to appreciate what's around you, but like looking back, it's always fun to say like, oh, I did this in whatever country you've been to. That's a hell of an experience.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did miss out on a lot of frequent flyer mile. They wouldn't let you use your frequent flyer mile number. So that was a shame, but you know, it is what it is.
That's a scam. It's $1 million. It's $1 million prize. Come on. Let me get some frequent flyers.
Just let me get my miles. We flew like 100,000. We flew all across the world.
Oh man. And you know,
crazy.
The crazy thing is those miles, like people don't realize picking an airline and sticking with it is a very important thing as an adult. Like it is and especially people that fly a lot. I know, Jake, you're all over the place. I travel for work.
It makes a huge difference, I think, and it's getting tougher and tougher now too. It's just with airlines limiting flights and, you know, kind of what the availability is or the options that are there. It's, you know, it's getting limited. So to tie yourself to one of these airlines is, you know, makes a huge difference now.
Oh yeah.
I got my American Airlines credit card and my Delta credit card. That's about it. And I just keep racking them up.
Oh man, I'm right there with you. I'm a Delta guy through and through. But I will take the direct if I have to go to like Charlotte or Boston on American. I never had the best luck. Like, do you all have any like horror stories from traveling?
Oh, plenty.
Ooh, yeah,
Plenty.
there's been a few with getting on the plane and stuck on the tarmac. Especially, usually it's in the winter months where they've got to de-ice the plane and everything. And it's like there's been times where there's been other planes blocking ours, so you can't leave the gate, but they're not gonna let you get off the plane. So it's like, well, we went and de-iced, and then now it's already surpassed the time limit or whatnot. So we got to go de-ice again, and you're on there 3, 4, 5 hours, and it's like, okay, now where are we going? And it's like, if you're connecting or doing anything, it's like, well, that's shot. So it's been some nightmares.
Yeah, actually this year I've already had over 50% of my flights this year have been delayed. So like I've already been in wild runs to different connections, and like last year was pretty good. I will give myself a pretty good record of travel luck last year. But like I already have over $1,100 in American flight credits because they've involuntarily downgraded me on one plane because they didn't know that they changed planes, and like one flight had to be canceled. And I'm like, well, at least I'm getting a bunch of free money to use on travel at some point.
Yeah. No kidding.
There you go.
No kidding. My worst travel thing was I flew to Denver for the first time. I forget what airline I was on, and I land and they have tornadoes, and they keep us on the tarmac in the plane.
In the tornado.
And I'm like, well, what is this? And apparently we come to find out, because I didn't know this at the time.
Show.
It was gnarly. The sirens are going off. You're like looking in the, how tornadoes just look weird, and the sky just looked weird. Mm-hmm. And
I'm a Midwesterner. We know how it looks.
Oh yeah. Man. And they were like, the reason why we didn't let you in is because the Denver airport is like all glass. And so like, if you were in there, you would have just gotten like ripped to shreds. So here you got a fighting chance. We could fire up the engines and maybe get lucky. So that was the,
I actually kind of respect that.
Yeah. That was wild. Planes are the safest way to travel, but man, is it scary. And after watching that MH370 on Netflix.
Oh yeah. I watched that.
It made me, I couldn't sleep at night after watching an episode. I was like, my heart's kind of pounding. Like,
that was a wild story.
I do all right with travel, but Lauren, my wife, is not, not all that comfortable traveling. So, anytime there's any turbulence or anything like that, it's, this white knuckle. So I was flipping through the other day and I came across it. And I was like, you want to watch this? Absolutely not.
Oh, brutal.
Never set foot on a plane.
Great story, though. I tell you what, it got me deep into the conspiracies.
Oh, man. I got on Google.
Everyone should watch it.
I got on Google and I was Googling everything. Like,
oh, yeah.
And now I want to buy that lady's book. Like I
also want to go look for debris.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
I want to go to those little islands.
Yeah. That guy, I don't know. Of all the things that happened, that dude that just went to like Madagascar or whatever and just found stuff, like that was the flakiest thing of the flakies.
Look, there might be a conspiracy there. Who knows? This guy looks a bit suspicious, I will say.
Yeah. But no, it's really cool like how all these documentaries have come to life on these unexplained things that you just don't know. Like, how does a plane just disappear? Like, that's wild.
Oh yeah,
it's wild.
I love it. I'll watch that stuff all day. Honestly, give me a crazy documentary about a conspiracy or something wild, and if it's well edited, sign me up. You lock me into my seat, I'm in. Yeah,
there was the one last year on Netflix too about the dude who jumped out of the plane with like all the money.
Yeah, DB Cooper.
Yeah, DB Cooper.
Yeah.
Dude, I watched that.
I haven't actually finished that yet, but I keep looking at it and I got to finish it.
Yeah, DB Cooper. That was pretty gnarly. They have a whole conference on that guy.
Man, I got to get in on that one.
Yeah,
that's next on my list.
Yeah,
Connor, I got to ask you too. Speaking of jumping out of planes, I know you're close with Pastrana and the Nitro Circus guys and everything too, and doing just crazy stuff. What being with them.
That's the dollar. That's the dollar. That's the dollar I won from Travis back there. He signed $1 for me on his dollar bet.
Yeah. So when when you're with the Nitro Circus guys and you see all the crazy stunts and everything these guys are doing, is that something that you're going to jump right in the middle of and sort of participate in, or is it more of like, hey, I'm going to sit back, see how this is done, and then make sure it's safe?
I mean, honestly, Travis is without a doubt, a massive hero of mine. I can't believe that he's become one of my best friends now. And like the guy is one of the nicest people I've ever met, the bravest person I've ever met in my life. And it's pretty inspirational hanging out with him and his crew, like going to his house for the first time. And he's got a whole racetrack in his backyard in the dirt through the forest. We're doing jumps, and I've never jumped anything really before. Like we get like not like actual vehicles, like jumping these Polaris Razors, these Can-Ams, like over 50-foot jumps. He's like, yeah, so just follow me over, and like you have to be at this speed. I'm like, okay. And there's no practice run. You have to follow him over, or else you're a loser. And so like you have to do it. And honestly, his house, the times that I've spent at his house are probably the most fun times I've ever had in my life. And it was, he's like, we look at his foam pit that he's got at his house, right? Giant foam pit that you ramp dirt bikes into, or really ramp anything you want into it. He's like, yeah, so you want to go in? I was like, yeah, I'd love to take this little mini pit bike into the foam pit. He's like, well, it's easier to backflip into it. So you should probably just first try backflip the dirt bike into the foam pit. I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. Like, I think I'm going to just ride into the foam pit. He's like, oh, that's no fun. I'm like, I don't, what do you mean? No fun. Like I'm going to have a great time. And so I did not backflip the dirt bike into the foam pit, but like I did ride it into the foam pit. But he is very encouraging. We went up into a giant one of those scissor lifts that lifts people up to like clean windows way up high in the air or do construction. And it's over a giant airbag that they also ramp dirt bikes onto. And he's like, well, we got to jump out of here now. And I was like, what do you mean we have to jump out of here? He's like, well, we can't get down. I'm like, what? And so we jump out of this scissor lift like 60 feet in the air onto this giant airbag, and I'm afraid of heights. I hated that. Like I was dying. But he jumped out first, and then I was like, I don't know how to get down from here, so I have to get out. So you're forced into doing things, but it's like forced in a good way. It's like encouraged, and like I'm so happy that I did that stuff. So I love hanging out with those guys. I think there are several things that I know to stay in my lane on, where like I will certainly not do certain things, but if enough encouragement is passed around, you never know what you might do.
Yeah. Sure. If there's a few bottles of off hours around, you never know what can happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Travis is a big whiskey guy. He loves it. And also beer.
There we go.
So speaking of whiskey, for you, like when did you get into whiskey? Are you into whiskey?
Oh yeah. No, I'm very, very into it. I have quite a lot of bottles over my right shoulder. I honestly, I don't know when I first got into it. I think I got into it when I lived with another IndyCar driver for a little bit named James Hinchcliffe. And James was into it before I was. And like once I started, I was like, okay, cool. Like maybe this is like what my mid-20s I'm getting into. I'm going to find some nice bourbons. But like we got really spoiled really quickly. Like they him and Alex Rossi, like Alex Rossi got deep into it as well. And then we just started trying all these delicious bourbons, and we're like, man, this is good stuff. I really enjoy it. And it's become something that we got like severely addicted to. Every city we'd go to, we'd try to find liquor stores and find certain bottles and certain things. And we're talking, we did this for years. Like we've been doing this for years. We're on weird, Facebook pages trying to buy bottles off of people, whether it's legal or not, we don't know, but it's, it's all kinds of, verbiage that we don't know about, but we have to use so the pages don't get shut down. It's, all that stuff. So I love it. It's my favorite spirit of sorts. And yeah, it's delicious. So a lot of it is. Some of it not, but some of it is.
And you guys have done some barrel picks and stuff in the past too, right?
Yeah. We actually James Hinchcliffe still has all of our Buffalo Trace bottles. We got a Buffalo Trace barrel pick, which is really good. That was a fun process. Like going down there and being involved in that process was awesome. But he's holding all the bottles hostage because he bought a place in the Bahamas to avoid taxes. So he's been down there and he won't come back yet until it gets warm in Indiana to give us our bottles.
That's funny. Oh man. Yeah. Whiskey's crazy and it keeps growing. So I'm going to ask this question and I have to phrase it this way. Outside of off hours, what is your favorite whiskey that you've ever had?
Well, it's a good question. I mean,
and whiskey's a broad term because it's not just bourbon.
Well, no, I know, but for me, there's definitely a top three. I would say the most crazy and expensive one. And again, when you get into all the years of certain things, it's hard to say. But when I tried William LaRue Weller for the first time, the WLW part of the BTAC collection, man, that was so good. And that's still Hinch's favorite. Obviously, the year to year are a little bit different, but like realistically, that's a really good taste. That's a really good bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a lot of the Old Fitz bottles, like whether it's the 14 or the 15. Obviously, the older, I mean, man, that's delicious. But Old Fitz is definitely a highlight of mine. Probably the 14 or the 15. I haven't really tried. I don't think I've tried the 16 yet. And then honestly, the one that I drink the most is the Weller 12 year. Weller 12 is just my favorite to just have. Like I had some last night, just sitting by the TV, had a little Weller 12. It's not absurdly out of control price wise, but it's for me, it's one of my favorites to drink.
Yeah. No, I think those are all good choices. And so now we look to Jake to say, when's the weeded off hours coming?
Good question. Yeah.
Because it sounds like one of your friends might endorse that. Because every bourbon he just named was weeded. I agree. The 15 Old Fitz 15 decanter, like, I don't know if it gets much better than that one. Like from a bourbon perspective, it's one of my favorites.
I also like, just looking at stuff, I mean, there's so much that's good. I love the EHT barrel proof as well. That's a great one but again, it's harder for me to find. Like I have one bottle of it that's open and I'm like, man, it's like, I don't want this to go away. And like I won an Old Forester birthday bourbon. Like I was like, oh, this is amazing. I won a raffle to buy it at regular price. And delicious. And I'm like, man, like, of course this stuff that's like crazy expensive is good. So like, I really do have a wide appreciation, I would say, of a lot of different things. And realistically, some of the cheapest stuff, some of the best stuff, like the Buffalo Trace barrel picks. I've gone through more of those than anything else in my house because they're cheap if you find them at a reasonable price, right, at stores. And they're so good. Like most of the time, those Buffalo Trace barrel picks are just like amazing.
Yeah. And they don't taste like normal Buffalo Trace because they blend them to a specific profile. And there's always that like hint of cherry in every Buffalo Trace.
Something. It's all different.
Just go, now that I told you that, it's kind of like when the guy tells you that there's banana in Jack Daniels, then you can't not taste banana. There's cherry in every batched product of Buffalo Trace, and then that is non-weeded. Now go drink Buffalo Trace and you're going to taste cherry. That's just
I can't because I'm in the race car tomorrow, but I would literally go pour one right now.
Well, you report back. You got our email. Just let me know what you think. So speaking of Indiana, one of my favorite places to go to in Indiana is St. Elmo's. Every time I'm up there. So what's your opinion on the cocktail sauce for the shrimp cocktail?
You know what's funny about St. Elmo's? I don't really go. It's very much, I think, like the touristy spot for Indiana now. And I love the shrimp cocktail. I will have it every time. Like we just did the beefsteak event here in Indy, which is something they do for March Madness. I don't know if you've been before, Jake, but like, have you been to the beefsteak thing?
No. Last year I was trying to get in town for it. They do a big thing there with off hours for the and everything too. They serve, so we tried to get with them, but I haven't been able to do it. But every time. I see some of the pictures and everything afterwards, and
me, Steven, and Deepu were there, and like I don't actually eat like red meat, so like I was just having shrimp all day, and I was having the sauce. I enjoyed the shrimps. Like I definitely love it. It's very aggressive, but like I haven't taken my girlfriend there yet, and like we've been dating almost a year. I was like, shoot, I haven't actually taken you to St. Elmo's to experience this, and she's like, what do you mean? I don't get it. What's so special about it? I'm like, well, okay, I can't tell you. Like, you have to go there and you have to experience it at least once. But
for sure,
it is a great place. It is a great place. Although I would say I am not a frequenter of the St. Elmo's properties.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It was kind of like we went up. So I'm in Louisville. So we went up and just, went out for the night, and we had never been, and we were huge Parks and Recs fans. And during the bachelor party episode, Ron wants to go to St. Elmo's. And so that's kind of where we got it. And so we went up there to kind of celebrate that. Now the tomato juice thing was very confused by that. Very confused.
I am also confused by that, if it makes you feel any better.
Yeah. I wanted it to be tomato soup, and it was cold tomato juice in a glass. Should have went with whatever the other option was, because that was not my jam.
Yeah, I mean, St. Elmo's is St. Elmo's. You have to go. Yeah. It's not a bad place. It's a great place. But like, it's all, for me, it's kind of like there's a very pomp and circumstance with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to Prime 47 and have a meal. Like, I'm just going to go sit at the bar with my friends, like go there, whatever it is, or any of the places on Mass Ave here, this other road that I don't live far from. A lot of great places there.
Yeah. I normally end up at Yard House for some reason right there.
Yeah.
One, because I know it's consistent. It's the same everywhere across the country, and they have a great beer selection. Bourbon selection kind of lacking, but great beer selection, good appetizers.
Probably don't go there for bourbon. Yeah.
No,
not so much.
No. It's interesting. So, when this comes out, the Indy 500 will be right on the precipice. And the last one I went to, and I told you I was going to share my story, is actually when your buddy Rossi won. So remember that very, very vividly. But we had been drinking bourbon all morning, and they were handing out glass or like little 16 ounces of
bottles of milk. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this would be cool. Like, I'll drink the thing of milk going in. So I chugged this thing of milk, and then I just put everywhere.
That's what happens when you chug milk. Have you not been to YouTube?
Yeah. Well, I've seen people do the gallon challenge. I didn't know the 16 ounce challenge was a thing. But apparently when you mix it with bourbon, it's just not a good call. And so I sat in the stands while all of my friends that were with us, me and another guy, we didn't leave. We said, hey, bring us a bottle of water back. They all went into the infield, and they all missed the back half of that win. Because that last lap of that race was insane. And then he makes the pass to win. It was just insane. And I won the pool because we drew names out of a hat, and I won. So I'm glad I watched it all unfold. I won $150. It was a great day.
Counts.
Great day minus a vomit from the milk they pass out, which is a terrible idea. It's like 90 degrees.
Oh man. Yeah. That's a hot day to be spewing out milks and bourbons. That is I do not envy you in that scenario. Even though I crashed that day, I still don't envy you.
So Jake, have you been to the Indy 500?
I have. Yeah. It's been a few years though. We used to go when I lived back in Indiana. We'd go every single year.
Yeah.
And every weekend or every year, I want to come back, but it's actually on our wedding anniversary. So
that's a tough one.
See you again. All right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Please watch it on TV.
I'm gonna have to set up something around the race that has something to do with our anniversary, so that I can make it work.
Oh, for sure.
You know what's funny is technically like the first weekend that I really spent with my girlfriend was the Indy 500. So like technically I tell her like, well, we kind of started dating at the Indy 500. I was like, oh, we can't really do that. It's like, that's a bad like anniversary to have, because I got a few things going on that day.
Right.
So we're trying to move it to like the next week.
Yeah, for sure. But I compare the reason I brought that up, because we're going to start these episodes right after Derby. And, for me being local to Louisville, I was like, man, Derby, the infield, there's nothing going to be better than that. And then like the glimpse of the infield that I got at the Indy 500, like there's some obscene stuff that happens at the Derby, but it is like Woodstock inside Indy Motor Speedway. It's gnarly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, man, there really is nothing like that event, and we're really proud of it, obviously, and it's something that this is my hometown, Indianapolis, the north side of town I grew up on. So I'm very, very emotionally connected to it. But like, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, I try to bring new people every year to the race.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if they're from LA, they're from another country, if they're from anywhere in the world. Everyone is blown away by this event. Doesn't matter where they spend it. Doesn't matter if they're in the pits. It doesn't matter if they're in the infield. Just the sheer spectacle of that many human beings. I mean, the Derby is a massive event, right? But like, you could fit the Derby inside of half of the Indy 500. Like, you could fit it all inside of like turn 3 and 4. So like, it's crazy to think of how many more people are at the Indy 500 on that day. Mm. And it's no disrespect to any other event. Like, it's great. Like, we love big events like that. Get me to the Derby anytime. Like, I would love to go to the Super Bowl. I would love to go to the NBA Finals. Like, stuff like that are awesome. But like, when it comes to the sheer spectacle and the actual magnitude of the event, there's nothing like the Indy 500 in the world. So it's pretty cool to have that. And I love to see people enjoy it, because I love it every year. It doesn't change. The goosebumps are the same when I enter that place. Doesn't matter if there's no one there or 400,000 people there. It's still an incredible place to be. And it's something that, very, very, is very, very tied to my heart.
Yeah. And it's well oiled, man. Like traffic's it's going to be
Not
what's going to
bad,
be, but
yeah.
it's not bad for that many people showing up. Like I was
Traffic
just really
always sucks. Doesn't matter where you are. So
fact. Yeah. It was one of my, like, one of those things I didn't know what to expect. Cause 150,000 people here in Louisville on a great year when the weather's good. But like, it was eye opening how big it was. Like I was kind of in shock. And IndyCar is a lot. I feel like it's less loud than NASCAR for some reason, even though y'all are going
it's a little
faster.
Bit, yeah. I mean, we're going faster, but we definitely have a slightly more muffled noise for sure.
So I also enjoyed that because the NASCAR event I went to, I thought I busted an eardrum. Because those things are no joke.
Imagine being in the car. It's louder.
Yeah. Well, you all got earplugs and you got all the fancy things to put over your ears.
Oh yeah. You can still hear it though. I promise you that.
I'm sure.
It was more than I expected when I got in the NASCAR for the first time. I was like, man, this thing is pretty angry sounding.
No, that's great. So we kind of went full circle. We started with racing, ended with racing. And so we end with the same question every week on these episodes is, how do you enjoy your moments in between? And what would be your advice to someone to enjoy those moments in between?
Ooh, great question. You can go real deep with that one. I mean, honestly, I hate not doing anything, right? So like I always try to do something. And even if I have finally time to relax, like I enjoy something to better my life. It doesn't matter if it could be anything. Like I like collecting Pokemon cards. So I'm going to buy some Pokemon cards. I don't know. I'm going to do something really random. I'm going to look at bourbon. I'm going to try to enrich my mind with something that I enjoy. Maybe picture myself, hey, what would it be like to own that bourbon? I don't know. Anything that you could think of that you might enjoy, like put your mind towards it. Don't just sit there and be idle or, work on something that you might have been putting off for a long time. Like I try to do that. I really do. So always keep yourself, I guess, focused on something else, something more, something that you could do to to achieve more or to do something more because it's fun to do that. It feels good to do that. So that's what I would say.
No, I think that's great advice. And I feel like sometimes we miss out on the moments because we don't go and do, right? We just get scared.
Yeah.
Or, we get in those moments where Travis Pastrana's right in front of us and he jumps first and you're like, well, got to go now.
Got to do it. Yeah. And whatever you do, don't use too much throttle because I ended up doing a barrel roll in one of them. And so just remember, don't nose it into the ground. If you're going to jump a Can-Am or a Polaris RZR over a 60-foot X Games ramp, don't go long.
All right. Notes then. Words to live
Put
by.
that in your notes section.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, hey, Conor, we truly appreciate it. Best of luck this weekend as you go off to your race, and we'll update the show notes with how you finish down there in Texas. And we truly appreciate it. And for everyone who is listening to this episode, thank you for listening. As always, you can follow Off Hours at Drink Off Hours on all their social media platforms. And then you can follow Bourbon Lens at Bourbon Lens on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we just want to say thank you. And until next time, cheers.